Dear Santa, I know it's time to write you again and tell you what I want this year. But first, I want you to know that I'm very upset with you. Every year for the past 4 years, I've told you exactly what I wanted as a blue voter. And every year, you found a way to let me down. If I didn't know better, I'd think I was responsible for my own happiness. But we both know that's not true. My happiness depends on complete strangers catering to my unconventional beliefs. And if they don't, I use that as an opportunity to pretend to be oppressed. Being oppressed is so exhausting. Every day I wake up in my expensive apartment, put on my designer clothes, drive my electric vehicle to my local Starbucks, spend $10 on an overpriced drink, dodge the homeless people around me, get to my meaningless job, and pretend to work while I watch brain-numbing videos on TikTok all day before going home to watch even more mindless content on my $1,000 mobile device. I told you last year I wanted Joe Biden to be re-elected. Then I changed my mind instantly and decided to vote for Kamala, but she lost. How was I supposed to know Joe was going to drop out? He was sharp as a tack the whole time and never showed any sort of cognitive decline. That's why my first wish this year is for you to help me see into the future so I can know when our candidate is going to change at the last minute in the future. For my next Christmas wish, I'd like you to help me find the 12 million people who voted for Biden in 2020 but who failed to show up for Kamala Harris in 2024. I know my party typically and consistently gets about 60 to 70 million votes over the last 5 presidential elections, and that those 81 million Biden votes in 2020 seem even more suspicious now, but I choose to ignore data and trends when I don't agree with them, regardless of how obvious they may be. Oh, and while we're talking about obvious things, I obviously want you to give me a kit that will allow me to add fluoride to my own water, as well as continued access to all the seed oils, dyes, and other processed food my heart desires. I want these things not only because I want my holiday meals to slap harder than Kamala's husband Doug Emhoff does, but also because RFK Jr. said those things are bad for us. Even though a lot of scientists agree, I don't think they know as much about health as people like Rachel Levine. I prefer to listen to people who identify as strong women, regardless of reality, because women are under attack in this country. Women have lost so many of their rights. I can't really name which specific rights they've lost exactly, but trust me, bro, they have. So one thing I'd like to ask for this year is for you to give them the strength to continue avoiding baby-making activities with all men as a show of protest, like they've been doing since election night. I think it's called the 4B movement. Anyways, not procreating will help our side make our point and influence future elections, I'm sure. That'll show those silly white supremacists. You know what? That reminds me. Please make sure all the white supremacists get nothing this year. I almost wish you'd give them coal, but that's bad for the environment, except for when Taylor Swift burns it with impunity to fly all over the place. And when I say white supremacists, I mean the white supremacists of all races. Because anyone I don't like is a white supremacist, regardless of their skin color. It is because of that amazing logic that my next request is for all Trump-supporting minorities to be removed from this country. Those aren't the kind of people I want to be around. I prefer the more aggressive ones who take over apartment complexes. You know I'm tolerant and loving, but I just refuse to tolerate and love certain people. I only like my people and the ones we say are okay. That ties into the next thing on my list this year. I would like to stop hearing about crimes committed by undocumented immigrants. They don't deserve to be persecuted. They're just here for a better life at our expense. No human being is illegal, even though I want conservatives to be treated like they are for simply existing. Speaking of those people, who Joe Biden called garbage after promising to bring us together in 2020, another thing I'd like this year is your assurance that Trump won't pardon any of the January 6th protesters. They broke the law by walking into the Capitol after being waved inside and having the doors opened for them by law enforcement. That was so uncivilized of them. Of course, I still believe to this day that BLM rioters did nothing wrong. I was actually hoping to see some more fiery but mostly peaceful protests after Daniel Penny was cleared of wrongdoing for stopping Jordan Neely, a homeless black man, from assaulting random citizens in a New York subway. Poor Jordan only needed access to compassionate care. Sure, he had been arrested more than 40 times for various assaults, but that's just because the system is racist. That's why one of my wishes this year is for all people like Jordan to have access to stable housing and healthcare. I know Jordan was provided that, but abandoned the treatment facility after only 13 days, but most people don't, so let's just keep it that way, okay? He was probably a chill guy, just like me. I come from a middle-class family just like Kamala, so I need prices to be low, and I can't believe Trump's tariffs will raise them. Of course, I only care about high prices now, not at any point in the last 4 years. That's when the economy was great, remember? Speaking of Kamala Harris, the next thing on my list is a class that helps me learn how to change the way I speak at the drop of a hat when I'm around certain people, just like she does. I'd also like you to give me $1 billion. I promise to manage that money just as responsibly as she managed the $1 billion that was pumped into her campaign. I'd probably spend some of it on a new electric car. I prefer Jaguar. Their recent ad featuring androgynous models prancing around without showing a single vehicle really inspired me, because nothing screams British luxury vehicles quite like brightly colored, nonsensical beings frolicking about on my screen. Anything outside of the US is much better than anything inside this country. Look at Canada. Justin Trudeau is the model for how to run a country properly. Sure, no one can afford anything, and they'll probably be living in pods and owning nothing very shortly, but that makes Klaus Schwab smile. And history has shown that Germans obsessed with world domination are always the best kinds of people, so I'm sure he knows what he's doing. While we're talking about people who know what they're doing, can one of my gifts this year also be text updates on all of Nancy Pelosi's stock trades? If I can just do what she does, I'll be able to make myself a millionaire in no time at all, and without the least bit of suspicion. Oh, and one last thing I need from you this year. Please make sure no one discovers the connection between the Pelosi family and the family of that good-looking guy who took out that United Healthcare CEO recently. Probably best to keep that under wraps, right? Okay, I think that does it for this year's list. But like I said before, I'm almost fed up with putting my hope in you, so you're on thin ice, buddy. That's not a pun. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Between you and me, I didn't pay attention that much in school. I'm sure no one ever notices that, though. If you don't come through for me this year, I'll just have to cut my losses and start believing in something else. Probably whatever Democrats tell me to believe, so I can continue letting my brain collect dust. Remember, I'm not responsible for my own happiness. You are, and you better not drop the ball. I wish you a joyful, vague, indiscriminate holiday greetings meant to include all celebrations, but definitely not the celebration of the dominant religion of the country in which I reside. Yours truly, Rhett Arted.